Hello and welcome to this Bot Rocket, DVW Analytics and Alteryx. You've got three for the price of one today. A webinar all around the end of SAP ECC. Don't panic, it's not going away. It's just ending its life as support. And we're going to hopefully show you some ideas of how to extend that life, how to do more. I'll turn you over now to the voice you'll hear most from, which is our colleague and our partner with DVW Analytics, Bill Rosario. Hey, Bill.
Thank you, Ian, and welcome everyone to this pretty exciting session. As Ian mentioned, ECC mainstream support is ending, and it's going to be here before we know it. So this talk is aimly squared at functional owners, not just IT. The core message you'll hear throughout this presentation is a very practical roadmap to making sure that the end of ECC support doesn't necessarily have to mean a dead end to innovation. So over the next 45 minutes, we'll cover the looming deadline on what it means, the cost of standing still, and how DVW connectors for SAP coupled with the Alteryx One suite of products lets you modernize and automate the SAP processes now instead of waiting for years into that migration roadmap, if you will. So going into the topics ahead, we're going to be talking about the looming problem, and the impact of staying on ECC. We're going to get hands-on with the DVW product and Alteryx One demos as a Swiss Army knife to be able to avail yourselves of additional tools as your IT groups navigate the migrations, and that's going to put stress on them and their ability to continue to support your functional needs. And then we're going to close with customer proof points, functional blueprints of use cases to give you guys some ideas on where to apply this cool technology. And then we'll wrap up with some Q&As. One thing I want to mention is over the course of the talk, we have a chat box available on the upper right-hand side of your screen. So if you have questions throughout the presentation, we have a brilliant team of former SAP consultants on with us, courtesy of DVW Analytics, who will answer all of your questions as we go through the chat. So, and at the end, we'll have a live Q&A where you'll have an opportunity to answer questions. So just to introduce ourselves on the next slide, my name is Bill Rosario. I'm the president and lead process engineer at Bot Rocket Solutions. We basically fuel business transformations that fundamentally change the way in which employees experience their work, tools, and data. Next, I'll ask Amanda, do you want to introduce yourself?
Fortunately, Bill, I think Amanda's having some technical difficulties. But
well, go ahead and introduce yourself then,
so
Ian.
I guess Hello, Ian James. So I work for DVW Analytics in the commercial team. I'm one of the other voices you'll hear, so I'll do some demos of the solution, just to give some flavor to what Bill's going to talk about during the course of the session.
Excellent, thank you. In our next slide, let's start right away with what the looming problem is. What's happening with support? So in December 2027 was the end of support for enhancement packages. EHP 0 to 5 or enhancement packages 0 to 5 was out of support in December of last year. And the remaining enhancement packages 6 to 10, which most SAP customers are on that, is scheduled to be out of support by December of 2027. It's been discussed that SAP has typically extended that deadline in the past. The current conventional thinking is that won't be the case, and that is a steadfast date by which it's going to be out of support. So, and looking at what that means for functional users, less than 50% of enterprise will migrate by deadline. The ABAP developers, which is the language that SAP is built upon in its code, is those developers inside of your organizations are probably either going to be consumed in trying to find a path forward for migration to getting into a supported system, or they're actually going to be hands-on, actively involved in any roadmaps that you may have actively underway. Either way, because SAP is a closed system, What that means is that any needs from functional users in terms of reporting or data extraction oftentimes requires ABAP developers to be able to do that. And being out of support means that you'll have less ABAP development availability, and companies will be less inclined to want to do further development in a system that is outside of support, as it were. So these are things that functional users need to be aware of in terms of what's coming at the end of next year. And then so it's important that you guys keep your ear to the ground on what's available to you. Next slide, please. So the struggle is real, right? So companies are really struggling into getting SAP data into trusted, timely decisions in terms of how companies are working for it. And the current landscape is that we have return to office mandates. And so that's also making employees, it's affecting the way and how they feel on their overall level of employee engagement. Companies are asking employees to do more with less and cost control. And they're also being asked to be more accurate with their forecast accuracy, and less than 17,000 customers or so are projected to remain on legacy ERP platforms beyond the 2027 deadline out of the 50,000 or so supported systems or supported customers globally. So this is a real struggle today because there are less integrators available than companies that need to make the migration. And that's all contributing collectively to this situation. Next slide, please. So this is where Alteryx One is a unified platform that brings in, we can read in data from multiple sources, most ubiquitously Excel, but with the DVW connector for SAP, you can actually bring in at warp speeds information and data from tables or T-Code extracts from SAP straight into Alteryx, and then you can do modern automation, analytic process automations for just about any cycle that you can think of: order to cash, purchase to pay, recording to reporting, supply chain. It's all in there, especially if you have large data sets to wrangle. Most of our customers have large data sets that exceed the 1,048,000 record count in Excel. And as we all know, in the functional side, our auditors like us to do information produced by the entity control activities and management review control activities on those, as we stitch together various spreadsheets to be able to fit large data sets. Alteryx, coupled with the DVW connector for SAP, cuts through all of that, which is why we often refer to it as Swiss Army knife that helps companies democratize process improvements. And the ease of use of this allows for rapid democratization to just about any user. Okay, next slide. So the impact of staying on ECC system, which, like I said, approximately 17,000 companies are expected to do that, is reduce enhancement activity because it's out of support. You've got, the custom code maintenance burden. You're going to have a very limited supply of resources available to be able to support your improvement aspirations. And then you're going to have a rising support complexity in your current environments. Or ability to innovate is going to be significantly curtailed. And then, of course, we've got compliance and regulatory considerations, be it SOX or European control operating system requirements, that this will be significantly limited in terms of the decision to remain or delay a migration off of ECC. The frozen ERP problem is really more of a burden on resources on the IT side. So as companies endeavor to do more with less and endeavor to provide an employee experience with return to office mandates, this becomes ever more important to be able to provide tools that employees can avail themselves individually and not have to wait behind long queues in your IT organizations. Okay, so knowledge workers, or those functional workers, they need a way to be able to cut through all of that on their own. So this talk is really meant for the tax accountant that's at 8 o'clock in the evening trying to figure out how to get a large data set, or trying to figure out how to answer a question from either management or auditors or what have you, right? It's meant for those individuals that don't have a person they can talk to other than submit a ticket with their IT organizations. Okay. So next, please. So I refer to Swiss Army knife for Alteryx One and the DVW connector for SAP. It's self-service automation. It's in the space of what it's called low code, no code. You do not have to be an IT person to do this. So if you've got MS Excel skills, like the ability to do pivot tables, if-then statements, be able to do, VLOOKUPs, syntax, that's all the space or the skill that you need. So you also have AI assisted analytics because of the visual nature, and we'll see that next in the demo that Ian's going to be kind enough to walk us through. The visual nature of it allows for very cool governance and audit capabilities, so you can track and see the data as it's evolving throughout your workflow. And so the scalable nature of that user interface is really where the key is. And we're going to walk you later on some subsequent slides around some use cases that we've built, some real world use cases we've built with customers, and some of the value that has been pretty compelling that we've been able to help them derive. Okay, so in the DVW side, the DVW connector for SAP, what's really cool about it is that it connects natively, so it's just a different way of experiencing the general user interface. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Ian so that he can give us a show and tell. This is what you guys are here to do, so take it away, Ian.
Hey, Bill, thanks for that. Yeah, so I get to do the nice stuff. So here's the solution, and here's that Swiss Army knife, that can make everything work for us. If you haven't come across Alteryx Designer, this is the desktop version of Alteryx that you're looking at right now. There are hundreds, 350 plus tools that come out of the box with Alteryx. On top of that, the DVW provides some extras, around about 50 extras, and what they do is enable you to connect to the objects that you're interested in within SAP. As Bill mentioned, tables, T-codes, queries, HANA views. If you've got to HANA, we can extract table data and also documents. We can extract BW. If you've got a BW system sitting out there that's not being used to its utmost, then hey, we can pull data from there too. So lots of possibilities. Let's show you quickly how you can get up and running. And as Bill said, any user can use this tool. First thing to do, you get connected to your SAP system. So let's just choose an ECC, since that's what we're doing. I've got lots of systems here. Just shows you can connect to as many as you like. I log on with my user ID, and I can then connect one of the tools into there. Now this tool is an SAP report tool. It runs T-codes. Okay, so it actually runs T-codes within Alteryx. For those who haven't seen this before, be prepared to be amazed. This is going to be new to you, because you may not have ever seen a T-code run outside of SAP. So I run my T-code here, FBL3N, in the finance space, but it doesn't have to be. It could be anywhere, any business area within SAP. As per the GUI, you get a list of parameters. Now I could fill those in. I could complete those manually, but much easier is to use the drop down here and to select a variant. These are variants that are saved over on the SAP side, and I can even copy those values across just to show you I'm not making this up. There they are. They've come across from SAP Live. These are variants that you've saved over there. Saves a bit of work and enables you to then very quickly run your T-code. So in the preview here, what we get is a subset of the full T-code. So it's running the T-code. It's going to present it exactly as you would see in the GUI. Some of you may recognize this output. It's not very pretty, really, not great for analytics, but don't worry about that. But you can see, look, for each GL and company code combination, we get a little mini table, we get totals, and then it goes on to the next combination, etc. Bit messy, but we can tidy this up. Look, this is a table of data. It has a header. So we can say, hey, make this the header row, and it color codes that for us. In fact, it color codes all the tables headers it finds. Remember, there are multiple tables in here. There are these header fields. We can process these very simply. What we really want is, rather than being outside, we want them to be part of the data, a column within the output. This does it for us. I'm sure for those of you played with this in Excel, you've had many hours of fun trying to get those into a column on their own. This does it in 2 clicks. You can see automatically as well that anything that's blank or dashes, things that aren't real data, automatically get excluded. They're grayed out already, but maybe we don't want the totals either. You know, we can summarize everything down the line in our analytics. So we can say, look, ignore this row here. It picks up that this is different from the other rows. There's a little star and asterisk in the 4th character, so it's going to ignore it. I raw preview, and it grays those out. That's it. That's the configuration done. When I say confirm layout, it's going to take this not so nice SAP output and create an output that is very usable now in analytics. You can see GL and company code have their own columns automatically. Everything else is passed. It's a single table now. So what comes out is super clean. I'm going to add a browse tool. That's just a visualization tool from Alteryx. Our tools are just other Alteryx tools, and then I can run this workflow now. By the way, when you set these up, this is a one-time hit. You create this once, you do that little bit of configuration once. It can be used again and again, and obviously you can tweak those parameters as you feel fit. The moment then, as you can see, it's logged me on. It ran the T-code with the variant, outputs the data, and there is a clean data set ready to use in these workflows. Simple as that. Oh, let's just flick back to the slides. Just give you a little background on how that works. Basically, you know, the special bits there, the connectors to SAP, are developed and sold by DVW Alteryx. That's our company here. Even though it says DVW Alteryx Connectors, we've got a little bit extra there. DVW Analytics is our full name, but I'm sure if you search for us on the web for DVW, you'll find us. We can connect to pretty much anything with SAP on the label. Certainly you can see the ERP systems. That makes sense. We're talking about ECC today. Absolutely, that makes sense. So we can connect to that system. And as Bill's been mentioning, we can help keep the lights on. We can help connect that difficult system, if you like, to talk to with the modern world, modern platforms like Alteryx. But equally, when you move, and if you move to S/4HANA, we can connect to all flavors of that. We mentioned BW, that's not a problem either. Even planning systems like BPC, Integrated Business Planning, which is a cloud system. Other cloud systems from SAP, SuccessFactors, Ariba, etc., etc., etc. In fact, anything with SAP on the label. What's great is on the right-hand side, you can see we do that in a super safe way. Down the bottom here, we can see that we never ever, the big red cross there, we never connect to the database layer. Okay, obviously that's the inner workings of your SAP system, whichever flavor it is. As SAP consultants of many years, we know that we wouldn't like anybody coming in at that level. You can do real damage there. Okay, so instead we connect at the application layer, and this is what makes it easy for business users to use as well. What that gives you is the ability to log on. You saw that I had to use the SAP logon tool to log into my SAP system. All my authorizations are applied. I can't be doing things that I shouldn't be. If I don't have a FBLN, FBL3N even, then I can't run that if I don't have it in my authorizations. Equally, there are safety belts built into the application layer that mean you can't hold up a process within SAP for hours and hours on end. There is a limit, and the SAP system will keep that limit. We fully respect all of those authorizations, all of those limits. Bottom line, we can do no harm. We can't hurt this SAP system. So what do? I've mentioned most of this already, but look, we can read data from pretty much any object in an SAP system, regardless of what SAP system that is. It integrates very easily, as you've seen already, with Alteryx. It's just another Alteryx tool. The one little bit just at the top of the screen here that I haven't mentioned is, hey, we can also write back into SAP. So as well as reading data from SAP into Alteryx, we've got an end-to-end process possible here. We can write back into SAP from Alteryx. So you can do journal entries, you can update master data, you can do whatever you like using very standard techniques like BAPI or IDOC. So just one more little demo, and I'll hand back to Bill. Let me just flick across to Alteryx again. Now, this is one I built earlier, just to give you an alternative. So I built and ran this earlier. This just shows that just the sort of the power of SAP. We've seen it, if you like, from one side, from the business T-Code side, you know, so something that's ready baked. It's got all the business knowledge in there. So you've got an output that's very reliable, absolutely what you expect, but it maybe you need the detail. Maybe you need to get down to the granular level of tables. These tools here, you can read yourself, BKPF connects to a table. In this case, the accounting document header table. You can see that the selection in here means that we can select exactly the columns we want. This is a very wide table, so we don't necessarily want all these columns. We want to be as efficient as we can, and indeed, we only need to bring back the data that we want. We can filter on absolutely any of these columns and bring back just the data we need. I've run this already. You can see I just brought back a handful, just 200 records. Doesn't matter the limit here. We can be very expansive and very efficient in extracting that data, but just for this demo, 200 records have been extracted. What's really super efficient is that we can now pass that data obviously along into Alteryx, but also on the bottom loop here, we can connect to another one of our tools, the filter tool. This gives us, we're not very good at inventing names, by the way. Guess what it does? It creates filters. So it takes the headers and it creates filters that the next table, the line item table or the segment table, will understand. So it's taking the header data that we've extracted, we've picked specifically, and it's only picking out surgically the line items that relate to that particular posting at a header level. So we're super surgical, super efficient. Then we're in the land of Alteryx. We can join those two together. We've got then the full view, the full finance view, header and segment or line item. And we can even do special things. Hey, you're in Alteryx. There's lots you can do. We, just for efficiency, give the technical names, which aren't very nice, very user-friendly, but that's no problem because we also have the ability using a couple of Alteryx tools to switch those into something that's more human-friendly. Okay. So back over to Bill. I think you're going to take it from here, yeah?
Thank you, Ian. Great job showing us the power of Alteryx. And one of the things that is want to mention also is this isn't just self-service. Is once you perfect the workflow with those one-time setups that Ian just showed us, the capability to be able to productionalize these workflows at scale is amazing. So through the Alteryx One Enterprise licensing, it allows for scheduling and you get your general IT controls where you can keep track of any time that a workflow has been changed or any time that it's ran, and auditors particularly like that, especially as you work with them to be able to do reduce hours and audit and actually accelerate your quarterly financial statement closing processes using this technology. Most of our customers, what they do is once they get their workflows perfected, they schedule them. So let's say that the cutoff for the P&L is midnight at 12:01. These workflows are running, and then when people are coming in the morning, they're just reviewing what these workflows already did. So a lot of the work is done, and people are actually going to be directing their time and attention to more value-added analysis. So these are some of the companies that trust DVW Analytics and Alteryx. In fact, these are just a few of those companies because there are over 500 logos. We just couldn't fit them all on this collage here, on this mosaic. But there are over 500 companies globally, of well-respected Fortune 50 companies even, who trust Alteryx One and DVW Analytics. And DVW is an SAP partner, and all of the men and women who are a part of the DVW Analytics team are former SAP consultants. You cannot work there unless you have worked at SAP previously. So their support is superb. Going on, I want to show you guys a little bit of what some of you should expect in terms of use cases. So on our website, and we'll show you at the end how to get these. If you go to our website, bachrocketsolutions.ai, you can actually download these functional blueprints. There are several of them by function. We have supply chain, we have accounts payable, we have basically ESG. We have basically just about any function in your enterprise, and these are some of the verticals of use cases that that you can apply this really cool technology. If you go to the next slide, we continue on I'm just showing you the one for the Office of Finance for purpose of practicality. This is slide 2 of that. So we cover IR, FP&A, financial control, statutory reporting, you name it, it's in there. And then there at the bottom are just some of the data sources that we can connect from and ingest data into Alteryx. And then just on the next slide, we have kind of a bird's eye view of what does this look like in real life. I like to explain things as if I was explaining them to my mom, so she could understand what I do. And I say, Mom, we just help companies go from hours and days and spreadsheets into very visual, very flowchart like oriented ways of ingesting and processing data in a repeatable manner. And so many of the companies that I see on the attendee list here have some sort of Lean Six Sigma background. So you'll relate to the fact that human error operates at roughly 2 sigma, which is about the 69% first pass yield. That's what human error is over time estimated at. This cuts through all that. It gets you better than 6 sigma, which is only 3.4 million defects for every million opportunities. So it's very compelling. You go from days and hours to minutes and seconds, literally eliminating the human error aspect of it. Okay. And then in the next slide, we're going to go, we're just talking about, and we were all in Alteryx Inspire and their annual marquee conference earlier this year in Orlando, Florida. It was actually last month and about 5 weeks ago, and they had the slide up there and how to position Alteryx for people who don't quite understand what it is. And because this technology falls very much in the space of what people don't know that they don't know and they should be looking into. So what we talk about is this acronym of VURA, which is, your data is visible, it's understandable, it's repeatable, and it's auditable. And you can go left or right in some of this. Some of what we're seeing our customers do is, instead of supporting audit processes that are 100% substantive and that rely on test of details, they're able to do 100% population testing now, and they're able to bring to life their aspirations for continuous auditing in their organizations at a fraction of the time that it would take to do it on a sampling basis. It's pretty remarkable. I'd like to turn it over again to Ian for our third and last demo, and then I'll talk a couple of slides before I go into the Q&A.
Yeah, it was a great talk. Thanks, Bill. It was a great talk by Andy McMillan there, the CEO of Alteryx, just about the way that Alteryx and hopefully our solutions too fit into this ecosystem. Yeah, really this Vura gives you data that is really understandable. But I think his key point coming out of this was that, hey, just bringing the data into a data lake at table level, at very granular level, loses something. It's lost basically the human element, the human knowledge that's been built over many years. What Alteryx provides is the ability to create understandable and visible workflows where you've got that business intelligence and knowledge that has been built up inside human beings for many years, and create something that very repeatable, very efficient, and totally auditable. So really, and don't underestimate that one too. You can really see exactly where the data comes from, why it is what it is, where the calculations are. It's very, very easy and transparent in what you see. What all that leads to, of course, is the demo. Yeah, you can use it in finance and you can use it in current processes, but hey, one of these webinars wouldn't be a webinar nowadays without mentioning AI. So what you can use this process for is to get really useful, understandable data that can be used and surfaced and recognized from within AI. So let me jump across to just what, as Bill mentioned, just the last quick demo here. I'm just going to flick through this, but just to give you an idea. So basically, the idea of this workflow is to extract data. In this case, it's sales and distribution SD within SAP, but it could be any other business area, certainly finance that we're talking about. And it brings out data in a similar way. You can see at table level. Okay, so we saw that it's SAP data at table level is okay. It's obviously very granular. You've got all the information there, but maybe you want to apply some business logic in there. You want to bring data sets from elsewhere. Certainly, you're going to want to, as we saw, change these horrible looking technical names into something that's useful. Maybe we want to make dates. We can do that easily with one tool. Maybe we want to do some calculations and tidy up this thing. So we can do some preparation of the data within this. So we're taking our raw data from SAP, but we're applying business knowledge. We can also enhance the data. We can bring data from elsewhere. It might be somewhere else in SAP, and we want to bring maybe some customer text and company code text to make this real human data rather than technical data. It's data that makes sense. Because if you present it to AI, you don't want the code, you want the name. Yeah. And equally, I've brought this from Excel, but it could be from absolutely anywhere, as Bill mentioned, any other system that we could use to enhance the data set. Now, in this case, I've already run this, as I said, but we've got then a data set that is ready baked. It's got all the business knowledge baked into there, built into there, whether it be from T-codes, tables, wherever in SAP, and everywhere else in your ecosystem, to have a truly representative data set that can be used in your analytics, in your processing, but certainly in AI. And then the answers you get back from AI make more sense because you can rely on that data set as being true. I've sent this off to a tool, an AI tool from Alteryx called Auto Insights. It's a really cool tool. If you haven't seen it, I really recommend take a look at it. What it does is it takes a data set and then automatically creates analyses, verbal analyses that look like this. So if I just switch across that data set, I did nothing to it. The AI worked this out. It created a whole bunch of analysis verbally. They're not just numbers, okay? It's telling you real things. It's got cool, pretty little things you can play with here, but you can dig into this. You can say, hey, let's have a look at the tax amounts, and it drills in. It gives you more. What about this? Any particular company, any particular company code, whatever it may be, you can dig into it and it will give you really visual things. You can even export these. You can create automatically a small summary that can be sent out every day. If you imagine, as Bill mentioned, you run that workflow every day, overnight, it can push that data into Auto Insights, which will create a summary like this for your executives or whoever, and it can be sent automatically to them. Equally, if you're a bit stuck for time, it takes you about 30 seconds to create a beautiful presentation for your executive meeting too. So lots of possibilities here, but the point is DVW Analytics together with Alteryx gives you the basis to take your SAP data, take your business knowledge within SAP and within the human beings that are running your company, and create really good data sets, good processes, and even AI. Bill, back to you.
Thank you. And just imagine, I don't know how many finance folks are on the call, but just imagine being able to do your flux analysis for your auditors, where you have to explain variances above a certain percentage threshold or above a certain dollar threshold. That is a tool to do it, and it does it at a snap, at a push of a button. So thank you for that, Ian. And on the next slide, I wanted to show you kind of what a bot rocket typical use case would look like. So in this case, this customer was trying to reconcile two bank accounts. The baseline for this, it was taking them 72 hours. So we were able to free up 0.48 productivity of an FTE, and now we got that down from 72 hours to 2.5 seconds. Here at the bottom right hand side, you can see it was a fairly complex use case and workflow kind of set up in a vertical fashion, and it ended up saving the customer around $88,000 a year. So when you consider the cost of this technology, which Alteryx One Professional Edition is, you don't get quite scheduling with that, but that's, people oftentimes start off with professional until they work their way up. It's about $6,000 or so, and the DVW solution coupled is separately licensed, and it's about $1,750 or so. And that is really a drop in the bucket. One use case actually more than paid for this, and it's a use case that keeps on giving. And then in my next slide here, I want to give you guys a little bit of a sort of how compelling this technology is in terms of driving productivity and engagement with your teams. Nobody wants to be a functional worker to be mired in Excel. And typically what we see when we do these large deployments at customers is that you hear comments during the break sessions of people saying things like, I don't ever want to go work for a company that uses Excel, or I won't entertain a call from a recruiter for a company that doesn't use this technology. It's really, really cool to see the impact that it has on people's lives. The other blueprints available, these are some of the topics. I mentioned some of them, and you can feel free to catch a screenshot of this and go into the website. Certainly invite you to do that and download them. They're free. They're available to you. So, and if you guys have questions on how we can help you start your Alteryx and DVW journey, please feel free to reach out to me, to Ian, anybody on this call, Amanda. We're there to help you. So at this point, I'd like to open up for Q&A. We have Fahar in the queue. Did you have a question, Fahar? I don't know if we have to activate that, Ian.
Apologies, I can't. Yeah, we don't seem to be having that. Let's maybe while one of my colleagues just has a look at that.
Sure.
Maybe Fahar, you could put your question into the chat. So if you look at the top right there, there's a box with a little question mark in there, if you wouldn't mind. So apologies for that, but we will pick you up in a second. We had just some other questions. Maybe. So once you, Bill, how difficult is it to get people upskilled for this sort of thing?
Yeah, the typical persona of the person that this speaks to is basically anybody who uses Excel in the organization, or anyone who has an SAP GUI license. It's a different way to experience the GUI. Like you highlighted, all of the permissions transfer right over. And typically, what we hear from users is, "Oh my God, we can't get this to work." Well, let's go check in the GUI first. And what we find is that they don't quite have the permission to be able to do that. And so we say you have to work with your security team to get that access, which is great because it confirms what we know about the DVW connector for SAP, that it cannot do any harm. Typically, the average persona that can do VLOOKUPs or if-then statements in Excel, or do pivot tables, that's all they need. And we're usually able to get them upskilled at about 2 to 3 days through virtual instructor-led training sessions.
Yeah, and I guess it follows on sort of what you're saying there. So another question, does this require any sort of upfront development on the SAP side? What's required on that side?
Yeah, absolutely not. So it's a very simple, Alteryx One has a very simple download and client install on people's machines. And then similarly, because the DVW connector for SAP is a plugin from within Alteryx, it's a plugin that follows the installation from the SAP. in the case of running T-codes, for example, there's a very, very minor and benign transport code that is provided by the DVW team to customers to install at their backend SAP instance. But as a transport code, your developer groups at most SAP companies are very familiar with those, and they routinely run into those in connection with other external applications, and we're usually able to get those installed pretty quickly.
Fantastic. And then, so one more question there, just on the level of support. Obviously, BotRocket as one of the DVW Analytics and Alteryx partners are in there and happy to help and support. What comes along with the products?
Sorry, can you say that again?
So what level of support comes along with the products, I think was the question that was being asked.
Yeah, so as a BotRocket Solutions, my company is a partner to both Alteryx and DVW. So by purchasing Alteryx and DVW from BotRocket, you get not just the first line of support from our team, which is stateside. You get it for one-stop shopping for both products, as well as that first line of support. For additional support, we're plugged into resources on both Alteryx and on the DVW side. And as I mentioned earlier, what's really cool, and one of the reasons why I love working with the DVW team, is that they're very, very knowledgeable about SAP and the architecture and data footprint of SAP. So I've yet to find a problem we haven't been able to solve pretty quickly. And the response time are just phenomenal. Usually within 24 hours, we have a problem solved.
Cool, thanks for that. It's probably best coming for you rather than from me, but I concur. We've got a great support team when we get some great comments back. One other question, I guess this is probably more for me. Some specific use cases for ECC to S/4HANA transition. So what we're talking about in this particular webinar is more keeping the lights on for ECC for those customers that maybe don't want yet to move to S4 and want to really sweat the assets, as it were, and still use ECC and still develop and still be able to use these third-party tools. But if you are moving to S/4HANA, which obviously other companies will be too, and you may be at some point, there's no better tool for accelerating and de-risking that transfer of data. If you think about the massive data that sits in ECC, it needs to move and be moved into your new shiny S4 system. Alteryx and DVW provide a conduit for that, and it makes, as you've seen with the workflows, it makes for a very transparent, clean, clear, and I should use the viewer, shouldn't we? And auditable flow of data that can be very easily tracked, even down to the fact that you can pull data from both systems, from the ECC and the newly maybe transformed S4 system, bring them both into Alteryx and compare the two. You can reconcile. So lots of possibilities around there. I think it was Melissa there. Melissa, if you want to hear more, then absolutely drop me a line and we can set something like that. And that goes with everybody, of course. Just drop us a line. We're happy to set up calls individually for your specific questions.
Yeah, and to add to that, I had a pharma customer that actually supported their ECC to S/4HANA data tie-out for historical data that they were migrating using this technology. Initially, they had budgeted $12 million to bring in 80 temporary support help to tie out historical data and validate it on a sampling basis. 80 people, $12 million. They were able to do with this technology 100% tie out for the 3 years of historical data they brought over with 2 people. 2 people. Amazing story. It's very powerful. It's a data migration is a very common use case, and it's very very common and very reliable.
Fantastic. Well, I think we've covered most of the questions there, if not all. If you do have further questions, as we've said, don't hesitate to contact us. I'm just desperately trying to go to the last slide here. There we go. Don't hesitate to contact us, but at BotRocket or at DVW Analytics. Bill, do you want to just talk to this slide?
Yeah, definitely. So BotRocket Solutions, we are, again, we're value-added resellers of Alteryx products as well as DVW connectors. And so if you have, in our space, our consultants are primarily functional knowledge workers. So if you guys want to do ideation sessions with us, and run your use case by us, it's definitely something that we can do for sure. I don't know if we got the live Q&A to work. Is it possible to
No,
take
I'm
live
afraid.
questions? Oh,
Unfortunately, yeah, it doesn't seem to be working. We can't find the right button. So apologies for that. But please do reach out with your question, and we'll be
yeah.
happy, obviously, to chat.
I do want to address Fahar's question here. Is it necessary to change the connection from S4HANA and Alteryx? So what you can do is you can connect to multiple systems at one time. So you can actually bring data in from S4 as a read down, and then bring data in into from a different either ECC system or S4HANA system and compare the data. You can actually enrich the data as well from one system and another, and be able to bring in companies that have several instances separately of SAP do that all the time, where they bring data from multiple SAP systems into one common ecosystem. And it never leaves your environment, right? It never goes externally. Even if you use Auto Insights and have that cool AI sort of condensing of the insights into your data, that never leaves your environment. It always stays behind your IT infrastructure and security firewalls. Okay. So I don't know if there are any other questions that we want to address that may not have. I'm kind of checking here.
No, I think
Fahar,
we're
we got
pretty much
you.
getting there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think Yuling had a question around auto analysis and other tools. Does the information go outside the company? Never, never. It stays with, unless you decide in your workflow that you want to email it externally or do something like that. This is just like Excel. It's a client install in your environment, and it stays within there. I see that Fabiola had a question. Fabiola, do you want to put your question in the chat? We can address it.
Just following on while we're waiting for that question. Yeah, just to follow on what you said about connecting to multiple systems. One of our customers, Johnson & Johnson, here's the record you want to beat: 42 different SAP systems in one workflow. It's a monster, but it's got some work done in it and saves a heck of a lot of money. Yeah, as you can imagine, all the analysis going across all those systems is amazing.
Yeah, and what's cool about it too is it works with SSO, or it works with native credentials issued by SAP. So we can actually connect it to whatever your preference is. Okay. Okay. I think we've addressed everything here, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think we're getting there. As I said, please do write to us. We're happy to connect and jump on a call. You've got obviously the details there. Don't worry if you can't get them down. The click here obviously doesn't make sense on here, but we will be sending out a deck and of course the recording of the webinar in a few days' time. So look out for that. And please get in touch, and happy to show you more.
Well, thank you, Ian, and thank you to all the participants that stayed all the way to the end. We appreciate you, and I encourage you to visit BotRocket Solutions website. And there's a host of information, videos, and resources, ebooks, the blueprints, all of which are free. I encourage you guys to go and explore those, and contact us if you have any questions. Thank you for your time, and have a good rest of your day, evening, or what have you. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you.